few years ago, a guy worked at a Little Caesars Pizza. His job on Mondays was to stand outside, spinning a sign to attract customers. It wasn't glamorous, but it was fun. One day, while doing his usual routine, he saw a van coming straight for him. It jumped the curb and slammed into him, crushing him against an electrical box. As the traffic lights flickered off, everything went black. Then, he gasped. He was back on the corner. Nothing had happened. No van, no crash. Shaken, he started walking back to the store. Just 15 feet away, he heard a deafening crash. Turning around, he saw the same van had jumped the curb. Only this time, it just missed him and hit the electrical box instead. Had he momentarily shifted into another timeline where he survived? Have you ever had a close call? A moment where you were sure you should have died, but somehow you didn't? Maybe a car nearly hit you, or something catastrophic was about to happen. Yet, here you are, alive, watching this video. What if I told you there's a theory suggesting that in another universe, you did die, and the only reason you're here is because your consciousness shifted to the timeline where you survived? This is quantum immortality, a mind-bending concept that challenges everything we think we know about life, death, and the fabric of reality. Let's dive in. To understand quantum immortality, we need to start with one of the most famous thought experiments in physics, Schrödinger's cat. Imagine a cat inside a sealed box. Alongside the cat, there's a gun connected to a qubit, a tiny quantum particle that can exist in two states at once. In one state, the gun fires and the cat dies. In the other, the gun doesn't fire and the cat lives. According to quantum mechanics, until we open the box and observe the cat, it exists in both states, alive and dead, simultaneously. This is called superposition. Now, there are two ways scientists interpret this. The Copenhagen interpretation says that as soon as you observe the cat, the wave function collapses, meaning only one reality exists. Either the cat is dead or it's alive. The many worlds interpretation, MWI, however, suggests that both realities exist, just in separate timelines. In one universe, the cat lived. In another, it died. Quantum immortality builds on the many worlds interpretation, leading to some unsettling possibilities. Let's take Schrödinger's cat one step further. What if, instead of a cat, you were the one in the box? A gun is aimed at you, controlled by a quantum event. Each time the trigger is pulled, the gun either fires or it doesn't, based on quantum mechanics. According to MWI, there are timelines where the gun always misfires. In at least one universe, you continue to survive no matter how many times you pull the trigger. This is the core of quantum immortality. Your consciousness could always continue in the timeline where you survive, while in others, versions of you have died. Now, let's look at some real-world stories that might suggest this isn't just a theory. A teenager, struggling with depression, planned his suicide. He prepared everything carefully, left a note, dressed in his best clothes, and used his father's gun. Lying in bed, he placed the barrel in his mouth and pulled the trigger. Then, suddenly, he wasn't in his body anymore. He watched himself from a third-person perspective, lifeless on the bed. Time seemed frozen. Then, a jolt, a breath. He was back in his body. The gun had jammed. Was this just luck, or had his consciousness jumped into a timeline where he survived? This idea is unsettling. It suggests that you, your consciousness, will always continue in a universe where you survive, even if you should have died in another. That car that almost hit you, In another timeline, it did. But here, you walked away. Some physicists reject this theory, arguing that death isn't binary and that probability in quantum mechanics doesn't work this way. Others say there's no way to prove it. After all, you'd never remember the timelines where you died. So, what do you think? Have you ever had a near-death experience that felt too close to be coincidence? Maybe, just maybe, you're already living proof of quantum immortality. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the creepiest theories in quantum mechanics, make sure to subscribe for more mind-bending content. And who knows, maybe in another timeline, you already did.